Council meeting of May 15th, 2019 at 7:30 p.m. Mr. Winarski, Ms. Allen, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Jones, Mr. Potowski, Ms. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon. Please rise for a moment of silent meditation and pledge of allegiance.
Mr. President, I would ask as we go into our moment of silent meditation that we remember those who are less fortunate than we are in this community, locally and globally. I'd ask that we would remember those who have lost loved ones since the last time we were in these chambers. And finally, I ask our God and our Creator to give us the wisdom and the right information and the courage to make the best decisions for the citizens of the city of Erie.
Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of minutes from the meeting of Wednesday, May 1st, 2019, and bills for payment on May 10th and 24th, 2019. Ms. Allen, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Jones, Mr. Potowski, Ms. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski.
Do we have anybody here this evening for a repository sale? Anyone here this evening for a repository? Hearing none, that brings us to citizens to be heard. Please be advised that at 8 o'clock we do have a public hearing, and go from there, and then we'll continue with citizens to be heard. Good evening.
Good evening, Jason Brundle, 4131 McClellan Avenue, Erie, PA 16510. Good evening, Erie City Council, Mr. President, Schemberg Administration, and fellow Erieites. Just a reminder that last year at this time, I donated the Gilbert Baker banner, the pride flag, to the city of Erie and Erie County. Seeing that flag waving and the ones that followed led across downtown changed the narrative and made Erie's pride a success. I'm looking forward to seeing that flag fly again for what is about to take shape for the LGBT community this year. We are coming together and we are making it happen with this conversion therapy ban. Thank you. On behalf of those who remain silent, who have the voice but do not stand proud or brave enough to be themselves, and those who love themselves and will love to live in their hometown, young, free, and feel accepted. This is a moment in our city's history that begins a new era. Now let's hope everyone in our community can work together inclusively without an implicit bias, without judgment, without hate, from City Hall to the streets of Erie. And personally, thank you, Mary Jo, for organizing the LGBT Council. Thank you for bringing that together. And thank you, Erie City Council, from the bottom of my heart. It means a lot to me. To see this band love leading the way, and when we could work together, united, because when we are divided, nothing can happen. But tonight, I am here to raise the bar and introduce and announce a possible Flag Day event for 2019. I have some stuff to pass out to the solicitor, the mayor, and city council. These sheets have everything that you'll need to know, and I emailed Aaron and Renee about this. I do not want to spoil the big surprise, but I'm hoping to get the help from the city of Erie. Let's just say the National Flag Foundation, Erie PA's Old Glory, the Erie County Flag Foundation, several local unions, and Friends of Erie PA's Old Glory will possibly have a surprise for the city of Erie, her residents, and also to bring our community together as a whole, celebrating this symbol of freedom. The symbol of unity, inclusion, and to light the way for a red, white, and blue event. This is going to be a positive optimistic gathering. It's going to be the whole community coming together. Because today, we have firefighters in the city of Erie at the Bayfront Convention Center. Today, we are honoring the officers that have fallen, those who serve. And that flag symbolizes people that have died for what we are here today. And also, next Tuesday is our democracy in action. It's election day. I just want to remind that it's election day and the polls open at 7 a.m. and close at 8 p.m. So let's get out the vote. Let's keep democracy alive, an inclusive democracy. And this National Flag Foundation information that I've handed out to you, I'd like to know if you could email me and we could have this Flag Day event at Perry Square, where I'd like to have the whole community come out and hold that large red, white, and blue flag that we have that is ours. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Richard Wagner, 4228 State Street, Erie, Pennsylvania. Just a few things on my mind. The first being, we have an election, and in January, several new members will be seated. And one of their first chores will be to find a replacement for one of their members. I strongly suggest that instead of leaving it up to the 6-seated councilman, that 2-year position should be awarded to the 4th highest vote getter in this upcoming election. It's time to let the voters' voices be heard. Secondly, I think it's time in the next 2 years to change from the at-large concept for council people to something more similar to the county, where a councilman is elected to a district in Erie County. We could divide Erie up by wards. Again, this would be so much fairer and could allow a councilman to specialize in his area instead of trying to serve 95,000 constituents. Thirdly, the new mayor instituted the 2010. Everyone, everywhere, every time. 20 feet, eye contact and a smile. 10 feet, greet a person with a hello. I firmly believe that this program is also meant to include city council members. The giggling, eye rolling, and general lack of attention to any individual that comes to this podium is disgraceful. None of you have the right to demean or restrict anyone's point of view. Fourthly, I for one feel that the real success for Erie County, and that includes the city of Erie, depends on regionalism. I can't help but notice the mayor and several council members don't restrict their travels to city limits. They realize that if we can't embrace regionalism, the city and all regions around it will surely fail. So regardless, if anyone comes to this podium with a point of view backed by substantial fact-finding, if they are from Mill Creek, Harbor Creek, or Fairview, their ideas and concerns shouldn't be scoffed at because of their zip code. I also find it very ironic that most of the people that council deals with in this building don't live in the city either. Should you ignore them or restrict them from doing their job? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner.
Good evening. My name is Howard Bibbs. I reside at 2931 Chestnut, Erie, PA. I'm here just to remind everybody that the Secretary of Education will be here tomorrow. Tentatively, it was going to be at East High Auditorium, but it was changed today in the newspaper that it's going to be at Erie High at 5 o'clock. It's a known fact with the meetings, and somebody said this, that only a few people go to Erie High for these meetings, so I guess they decided to have it in the library. So they're looking for a few people to be here to say anything, I guess. Another thing that I like to say is the governor had said earlier this year that all new teachers, he was going to try to get it where all new teachers will start off at $45,000. Their salary will start at $45,000. He said that way there would be more money to go into the community within the school district where they live. That's a problem. because the majority of teachers don't live within the school district. So that means the money gonna go somewhere else. They're gonna be getting money from the government in their area, and then the money that should be going into our community is gonna be going to outlying communities. So I just wanted to mention that. As you all know, I like watching cartoons. I like watching South Park. And the South Park that I was watching, the little boys, they had went to the store and they couldn't find something that they always went to the store to buy. They went back next week, it wasn't there, so they decided to find out what was going on. So they went to the town where everybody was coming from, to South Park. They found out that there was a travel service there that was sending everybody to South Park for all their needs. Plus, they also found out that within South Park jail, that the jail had a travel thing telling all the inmates where to go when they get out of jail, where to go find a girlfriend, the whole 9 yards. You know, so it made me think about our town, because it seems like there's a travel agency going on where everybody's coming to Erie, you know, and I think something needs to be done. I'm not here playing like I'm Trump, gonna put up a wall or anything, but if everybody's coming from the county for jobs and people in Erie are not getting those jobs, then sooner or later all the money is going to continue going south. And I've been saying that since 2012, that the money just come and go south. I remember I was somewhere where our mayor was talking about charging some type of incentive to the small business at one charge and another charge for a bigger business. And there was a gentleman behind me. He had just spoke about starting a business, but he didn't even live in Erie. But he was going to start a business here in Erie. But when the mayor said that, he was moaning and groaning. I mentioned something about what the governor has said about the school teachers and how that was going to flow. So a lot of people aren't thinking about the survival of Erie. The people that live here better start thinking about how we're going to survive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bibb.
Mr. President, before the next person comes up, I'm going to explain why I'm stepping away. I'm not engaging with somebody who has ramped up the incivility. I don't care who criticizes me for doing this. I have a fever, I have a cold tonight, and I do not need to hear this. So I'm just stepping out, and then I'll be back. I don't care how much criticism I get. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Randy Barnes, 109 Walton Point, Erie, Pennsylvania. I have friends and family that own property in Erie, commercial and residential. 2 campaigns ago, I also donated money to the Schember for Mayor campaign. I'm here to talk a little bit about what I think the most important function is down here with the administration and council, and that's passing a budget every year. Without that budget, the lights aren't on, the streets aren't painted with flags, we aren't doing anything without a budget. So, and anyone ever asks you, why did you become elected, why did you run for office, you have to say, well, the most important thing I have to do is pass a budget. Well, I'm here to stand before you to say that as far as passing the budget, the most important thing you and the administration done, you get an F. You get an F. You failed us. Why do I say that? Because every year since 2016, you've borrowed $5 million to balance the budget. You've borrowed $5 million every year since 2016, including next year, because you already borrowed it, and the next year. So in 6 years, council, the previous administration and this current administration has borrowed $30 million to run this city so we can give at-will employees raises. We gave at-will employees raises. We know that the mayor's assistant makes 11% more than the assistant made 2 years ago. Where did that money come from? We borrowed money to balance the budget. We borrowed $5 million a year. You get an F. You failed us. I want you to, after the meeting, You can go with before the media and say, we didn't fail. We borrowed that $5 million because that's good financial sense to borrow money to balance our budget. That makes financial sense. Go ahead and say that. I'd like to debate someone that says $5 million a year borrowed by the city of Erie is good financial sense. I'll take that argument on any day. And I think anybody out here could take it on and win that argument, because you don't balance your budget by borrowing $5 million every year. I want to talk about something that's really kind of serious, even more serious in this budget, because it's life and death. You know, we had a place down the street 4 blocks away that was called, the police were called several times at 2 and 3 in the morning to a cyber cafe. Why were the police called more than once? Why wasn't code enforcement involved? We all know that, well, most of us know that, because I've had council people tell me how code enforcement is pretty much dysfunctional. So we have to have someone die. Some young man has to die, stabbed, died, bleeding outside the place, in order to get code enforcement to look into why a cyber cafe is the police are being called 3 and 4 times for fights at 3 in the morning at a cyber cafe. Someone has to die. I don't know who this man was. I don't know if he's black, white, green, yellow, but I hope his family hires a good attorney. A really good attorney from outside the city that's willing to take on the city. You can't have code enforcement not do their job, because you know what happens? You get a building across the park that is so bad they have to take the tenants out. You know why? Because code enforcement never inspected anything that's gone on over there for years and years and years. But that's okay, isn't it? That's okay. You know that little viewing platform that used to come out of Sherlock's was put up a few years ago? So Sherlock's and some administration here could watch what was going on State Street? You know that? That was never permitted. Why would it be? Let me just tell you something about the plan to get yourself out of the hole of borrowing $5 million a year. $10 million, we're going to pass ALERTA, and that's great, just whatever. But we're looking for $10 million worth of the new assessment. What does $10 million bring you in 10 years? $10 million worth of new assessment, what's it bring you in? $100,000. You're borrowing $5 million a year to run the city. Remember, I don't know how you do it. It's the F. It's the F word. I'd say loser, but it's the F word. Failed. Thank you.
Unfortunately, at this time, we are having a public hearing. It's scheduled for 8 o'clock, so if you want to hang around, it really shouldn't take too long, and we'll continue with citizens to be heard.
Pursuant to PA 47 PS 4-461B3,
Why did you let people talk so long if you knew you were cut short by 8 o'clock? That was.
Excuse me, sir. Everyone gets 5 minutes, and they had their 5 minutes.
pursuant to PA 47 PS 4-461B3 and the proper legal advertising, a public hearing will be held Wednesday, May 15th, 2019 at approximately 8 p.m. in City Council chambers to hear testimony concerning transfer of restaurant liquor license purchased at auction to be transferred to the King Fuel and Food Mart, 605 Parade Street, Erie.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Mayor, Mr. President, Councilmen, Councilwomen. Richard Vendetti, 3820 Liberty Street, attorney, Supreme Court number 6604. We have a very full agenda, so I'll try to be brief as I can. I represent Kang Fuel and Food Mart. I just call it Kang Shell gas station situated at 605 Parade Street, 6th and Parade. They sell gas. It's a C-store, very similar to a to a country fair. I represent Mandeep Kang, who are the owners. They've been the owners of that premises since 2005, so they've been there about 14 years. In 2016, the LCB Liquor Control Board revamped the entire liquor code, and now C-stores, as you know, convenience stores, have the ability to sell beer if you meet all their requirements. And very many country fairs have them. I transferred 4 or 5 of them. I'm in the process of doing the Tinseltown right now. So they do not have a beer license. 12th and Parade does have a beer license, and 18th and Parade has a beer license. Lucky's at 18th and Parade, and Country Fair at 12th and Parade. They're at 6th and Parade. It's hard to remain competitive without a beer license because people just don't stop in the store unless they need gas or cigarettes or something of that nature. So in March 25th, the LCB had an auction. They auctioned off 25 licenses in 25 counties. Licenses are issued on a per quota basis. And we purchased one that was in Mill Creek Township. And under the LCB rules, it requires intermunicipal transfer for the receiving municipality, Erie, to come from Mill Creek. The one we purchased, it has to remain in Erie County, but it's a Mill Creek license. So that has to be brought into the city of Erie, hence the request for the resolution. And I do thank Mel for sponsoring the resolution and the president for seconding it. So this intermunicipal transfer, if it occurs and it's approved, that allows that Mill Creek license to be transferred to the city of Erie. After we receive approval, then we have to go through the regular LCB transfer application. And this all must be done within 6 months. So we have another 4 months to go. But that's the long and short of it. They have to complete renovations to the store, because under LCB rules, you have to have 30 seats, 30 tables, 12 inches by 18, food for 30 people, separate cash register, conduit between the sale of dry goods, potato chips and whatnot, and the beer sales. And take a look at a country fair and you'll see what they do. So we are asking for permission to do that and for the bringing of the Mill Creek license into the city of Erie. Any questions on that?
Council?
Will they be able to purchase like 24/7 when the place is open?
No, the Kang brothers are probably going to shut down at 1 o'clock, 12 or 1 o'clock.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This time we ask any citizens that would like to speak in favor of this, please come forward.
Well, I'll just say it, I'll be in favor of this, but one thing is that I would like to stress upon the fact that of alcohol, opiates, and gambling are an addiction. And we have a crisis in the Commonwealth and across the nation. I would like to have City Council possibly recommend that not just this business, but businesses across the board, that, like example, like at CVS Pharmacy, that the City of Erie posts local agencies that for people that need help with the opioid crisis, and then that places like the Shell gas station or Country Fair could post places that if they need help, if they are addicted, or if they have problems, that they post numbers or they post information, so that when they go into this Shell station, that let's say they know a family member that is suffering from alcoholism, they will have that public information there to say, oh, stairways, cadenzia, or something like that to get that help that they need. Something to help to curb this addiction that is happening across the city and the Commonwealth. That'll be a little bit of a benefit for Shell, because then they show that that gas station at 6th and Parade care, and they have the compassion to look out for their fellow citizens.
Thank you. Anyone else here speak in favor of the transfer? Anyone else here to speak in favor? Anybody here to speak against this liquor transfer? Anybody here to speak against? Hearing none, I believe that wraps up this public hearing. I think that, Rose, will just bring us back to citizens to be heard.
Yes.
Okay, we're back to citizens to be heard. I promised it wouldn't be too long. I apologize for the wait.
Good evening.
Good
My name is
evening.
Michelle Tome. I live in the county, but I work in the city. I just wanted to speak.
Can I please have your address?
Oh, sure. 9751 Edinburgh Road.
Thank you.
I just wanted to speak to the hopeful passing of the conversion therapy ban ordinance, to just request that, should that be passed, that there's also something that goes along with it so that people know that it exists. I would like to think that anybody who is in mental health, whether it's an individual, clergy, or an agency, would have to go through some sort of required training on this to know that it exists, so that it can be properly held accountable if they violate it. And then the other, what I'd like to talk about is if there could be a way to also have an ordinance. I don't know how you go about getting them, but an ordinance to get rid of any racist or hate symbols in the city and county. You notice anywhere you go, you see Confederate flags on cars, in windows. There's also an establishment on the corner of 11th and East Avenue that has Aryan Brotherhood symbols on it. And I would be curious to find out more about how an ordinance banning racist symbols can be created and passed. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello,
Hello
my name is Rose Surma. I live at 1212 West 33rd Street in Erie. I would like to speak about the conversion therapy ban. My son Jackson is transgender. He finally found the courage to tell us this at age 12. He had been struggling with gender dysphoria for years and has never felt right being identified as female, the gender he was assigned at birth. There were so many signs that we did not take seriously. We asked ourselves if it was a phase. Surely he wouldn't hate his body forever, and he would be comfortable in his body as a female at some point. But when he told me he knew he was transgender, and that he knew he was a boy in his heart and mind, I understood he was serious. I told him we would figure it out together. My mission was to read every book, watch every documentary, and gain every insight I could to understand and help my child. Every book I read affirmed what I knew in my gut, that this was really him and not just a phase. Counselors, social workers, support groups, and pediatric endocrinologists became our trusted professional team. These medical assessments helped me see that my intuition was right. These trained and experienced doctors and mental health workers agreed that there was no harm in allowing my son Jack to live as he had asked, with a new male name and pronouns, and leave behind his former name and gender. Jack blossomed, entering 7th grade with a new name he loved and pronouns he identified with. His confidence grew daily. Teachers and other parents saw that too. His friends and other students adjusted quickly. His friends didn't mind that he had changed, because he was still the same artistic and caring child, but a better version. He could be honest and feel good about himself now that his name and pronouns matched how he felt on the inside. Over the past few years, he has never wavered in his gender identity. He has consistently felt he is a boy, just with body parts that didn't match that gender. He is not ashamed of being transgender, but like a lot of teens, he's 15 now. He just wants to blend in and be seen and treated as any other teenage boy. Mental health professionals who work with gay and transgender people are there to listen and help. Someone's sexuality and gender identity is deeply ingrained in them, a part of them that is there for life, just like anyone's identity. Some of the causes of their difficulties in life come from rejection of family and the way society makes them feel less than. Gay and trans people face discrimination, and this affects the strongest of souls. A proper counselor should help a person face their challenges and find healthy solutions to better address their feelings and find ways to cope with difficulties in a healthy way. Some would wish to turn a gay person straight or force a trans person to live as their gender assigned at birth. Please know that this doesn't work. Permanent damage is inflicted to those who are forced into this type of therapy. Mental health declines, suicide rates rise significantly, and the misuse of the responsibility to help and counsel may create a mistrust for the mental health professionals, making it unlikely that this person will seek help when they need it the most. Trans youth are 6 times more likely to live with depression and are at a higher risk for suicide. My child is not broken. My child is not damaged. My child is transgender. He's living his life the way that is right for him. There's no need for anyone to force him to live as other than the gender he identifies, male. He will always have our support and unconditional love. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm William Peck, 1257 East 43rd Street. I'm retired, I'm a vet, taxpayer. Basically, I want to talk about the parking authority, but I want to make a comment to the mayor. You should be ashamed of yourself for not meeting the president at the airport. You represent all the people in Erie. Don't forget that. You're just a minority show anyway.
Sir.
Okay. About 3 months ago, the mayor said that he was going to put a job position online in the City of Erie website for parking authority members, open to the public. Joe Sixpack, anybody. Well, my son, a well-established member of this community, a hard-working young man, applied for that job. He had all his resumes, information in line, all his data. He was number 78, right on top of the application. It was sent. I know 14 other people that applied for a position on parking authority. None of them got interviews. They were all appointed by you. That's wrong. Also, I don't understand that you were on Barry Van.
Excuse me, sir. You're here talking
With the mayor.
council as a board.
The mayor was on Barry Van Steinberger, or whatever his name is, 4 or 5 months ago, was talking about creating a czar, a civil rights czar, a la Obama. And he said that he's had some, I wish I had a tape of this show because I remember it. He said he had some interesting applicants. Then he went on to say, well, 2 white people applied. He laughed. He said, this is an interesting position. He says, I can't take that seriously, but it's nice that they applied. The 60s, the civil rights agenda was pushed forth arm in arm, black and white, in the streets of Washington and Birmingham. All citizens pushed forth that civil rights agenda. I didn't like, I called Barry again about a month later. You were on again. The mayor was on again, sorry. And he denied that he said that. And I don't mishear anything. So I just wanted to let you know that that's still fresh in my mind. There's a growing interest in you as a mayor. And it's growing in the small McDonald's and Panera Breads and small restaurants and cafes around this town. They're talking now. So don't expect to be reelected. I'm done.
Thank you. Any other citizens be heard this evening? Any other citizens to be heard? Hearing none, we'll move on with the agenda, Rose.
Ordinances for final passage. Council file number 16092, official ordinance number 32/2019. An ordinance appropriated the sum of $2,253,301 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue for the expenditure thereof from bond proceeds. By Mr. Jones, second by Mr. Kwiatkowski. Excuse me. The council file ordinance bill number 16092. 16092, and now known as official file ordinance number 32/2019, be finally passed by the city council. Ms. Allen, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Ms. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. City council passed official file ordinance number 32/2019 finally by yea 7, nay 0. Council file number 16093, official ordinance number 33/2019, an ordinance amending the codified ordinances of the City of Erie, Part 5 Traffic, Title 5 Stopping, Standing, and Parking, Article 527 Impounding of Vehicles by amending Articles 527.03 Garage to Post Bond and Article 527.04 Towing and Storage Fees to provide that the applicable bond, towing, and storage fees apply to vehicles which are stored as well as impounded under the authority of Articles 527.03 and 527.04. By Ms. Allen, second by Ms. Arrington, the council file ordinance bill number 16093, and now known as official file ordinance number 33/2019, be finally passed by the city council. Ms. Allen, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Ms. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. City council passed official file ordinance number 33/2019 finally by yea 7, nay 0. Ordinances for first reading. Council file number 16094, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Erie, Erie County, Pennsylvania, prohibiting conversion therapy with a minor, providing a penalty for violating this ordinance, providing for the repeal of inconsistent ordinances, providing for the severability of the ordinance, and providing the effective date of the ordinance. By Ms. Schaaf, second by Ms. Allen, the council file ordinance number 16094, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the city council. Ms. Allen, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Jones.
Mr. President, I'm going to vote for this. A question that was raised by a citizen in relation to, and I know it's not what we do per se, but in relation to those who will provide service in our community, our social service, mental health providers. Is there a mechanism, and I don't know if we have the answer or where the answer would come from, honestly, but is there a mechanism to make sure that this is a known ordinance? This is something that is, I know this is our first reading, but part of the process is that people who provide these services need to know that there is a certain ban, that there are certain things that they are not, according to what we're moving to do, able to provide in relation to their therapy, and their service. So I am, again, going to vote for this on first reading, but I think we need to have a little more conversation. And again, it may not be necessarily how we, or what we do, but by nature of passing this, if we do in the second reading, then the implementation and our intentions, I think, need to be known by the service providers. So if we can find a mechanism to do that, I think it would be important for implementation. Thank you.
Mr. Kwiatkowski, Ms. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 16094 by yea 7, nay 0 on first reading. Council file 16095, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $500,000 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue to be received.
5 million, I think that was.
5 million?
Yes.
Okay, 5 million, thank you, from unappropriated and anticipated revenue to be received as a redevelopment assistance capital program grant from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Office of the Budget, which will be utilized to assist Scott Enterprises in the construction of the Bayfront Harbor Place Hotel. By Mr. Jones, second by Ms. Arrington. The council file ordinance number 16095, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the city council. Ms. Allen, Mrs. Arrington, Mrs. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Ms. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. City council read and adopt council file ordinance number 16095 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Council File 16096, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $300,000 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue received from the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development as a grant to the Enterprise Zone Revolving Loan Fund and will be utilized as a loan to the Renaissance Center for elevator renovation. By Mr. Jones, second by Ms. Arrington, the council file ordinance number 16096, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the city council. Ms. Allen, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. City council read and adopt council file ordinance number 16096 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. That'll take us into new business.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I would like to move the balance of the agenda.
I would second it, Mr. President.
Have any separations this evening?
I'd like to separate number 5 under new business.
And I'm separating number 6 under new business.
Any other separations?
All right, moving the balance of the agenda, Ms. Allen, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. By Mr. Jones, second by Mr. Kwiatkowski, resolved by the council of the city of Erie, authorizing and directing the city solicitor and proper city officials to study the feasibility of enacting an assessment/fee process and legalities regarding the granting of zoning easements and report findings thereon to Erie City Council. Discussion?
Mr. President?
Sir.
I wanted to separate this for just a few moments of conversation or discussion anyway, or comment. It's ringing. I don't want to be too loud. Excuse me. I think this is something that I've been pretty direct on in relation to not so much trying to balance the budget or raise an absorbent amount of revenue from it, but I think that the fact that we have the gift of an easement in space that is city space that businesses are utilizing, for-profit businesses are utilizing to add value, to add revenue, to add quality to their for-profit business. I think that there should be a fee attached to that. There should be some form of compensation to the city for that. I think we see, not to touch maybe a sensitive topic for some folks right now, but the event of Roaring Shore isn't here because there were fees that weren't being paid, but services were being provided, or something that belonged to the city was being utilized with no compensation for the city and for the citizens. And so I think this is another one of those examples where, the whole language of you got to pay to play. And this, again, we're not talking about trying to overtax or be business or not friendly to business, but I think that is a part of business. And if you're going to get an easement of 6 feet by 13 feet to put tables and chairs and to expand your business outside of the proper building structure for profit, there should be something, that the business should pay for that. So I think it's just a bit of us valuing what we have as resources and assets and not allowing them to be continued to be given away for free. But I will ask, as the solicitors, respectfully requesting them to not just look at moving forward, but if we're going to do something on an annual basis or the best logistical way of doing this, if we can look at going back previously as well for those who already have been established with their easements. And again, easements are not always just this type of easements, like for-profit businesses. It's for-profits. Some of them are safety issues of awnings. I'm not talking about awnings. I'm talking about where the organization or the business that is for-profit will gain more revenue for the expansion into our right-of-way. So again, I'm excited and appreciative and asking for my fellow council members to vote in support of this, and appreciative of the solicitor's office doing the due diligence to get us some information so that we can make a decision on it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
I echo Mr. Jones's comments. He and I have been at this for quite a long time, and Ms. Allen also joined the fight during the budget sessions. What bothers me is that when I was controller, I did a little survey, and at the time, nobody wanted to listen, either the council at the time or the administration. But half of the businesses, and this is when we were doing it for free, which we are now, aren't even in compliance. I can show you 2 or 3 that are exceeded what we allowed them to do. And one of them is a very political thing, which I'll discuss after, if you'd like to find out which one it is. But not only that, all we ask is that they indemnify the city by putting us on their insurance policy. So if there's a brick that falls, if there's an accident, a fight, somebody walks into the structure, it's put in the wrong place, that we are not held liable. And like Councilman Jones said, if you even try to extend your premises with the LCB, you gotta go through a process, and they charge you. This is not about gaining revenue, but in a way, it's to cover our costs for going through all this. And it also gives us the opportunity, if the administration follows through with this, to go back and check those ones that aren't in compliance, and to make sure going forward that they understand the rules and that they abide by them. Because it is a privilege to access the public's right of way. That's a privilege which we grant. And so I want to see this not as a punitive or an economic measure, but one that keeps them in compliance and covers the cost of us, granting all this and doing all the work. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I also, excuse me, I also echo that sentiments from Councilman Jones and Councilman Kowalski. It has been on the minds of council people for a long time. It came up when I served with Mr. Bagnoni and Mr. Frazier, Mr. Thompson, and we attempted to make this happen, but it didn't happen. So it's been out there for a long time. I raised the concern that if you expand, can 2 wheelchairs, can 2 electronic wheelchairs pass each other at the same time? And I'm concerned about that because my daughter is in a wheelchair. And I've seen some individuals in wheelchairs struggling when there's just one there and somebody is walking by. So that measurement that you're concerned about is so true. So I'm in agreement with Councilman Jones.
Thank you.
All right, roll call. Ms. Allen, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Ms. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. This resolution will adopt 7-0. And then we have by Mr. Witherspoon and seconded by Ms. Schaaf. Resolved by the Council of the City Erie that the mayor and other appropriate city officials hereby authorize the City Department of Public Works to submit a grant application to Erie County Gaming Revenue Authority in an amount up to $100,000 to be used for expansion of the emergency vehicle preemption system to promote safe passage of emergency responders at signalized intersections. Be it further resolved that the applicant is authorized to execute a memorandum of understanding with Harbor Creek Township to collaborate on the grant application. Be it further resolved that the applicant does hereby designate the Director of Public Works as an authorized official to execute documents to facilitate and assist in obtaining the requested grant and future documents as necessary if the grant is awarded. Discussion?
Mr. President?
Yes.
Okay. I am voting no on this resolution because I don't feel that we have received adequate information. I had to ask what this was all about, and Dave Mulvihill, Director of Public Works, did give me information. He was responsive, but I wish we had had the information when the resolution was initiated. I should not have to go and track it down and ask about an RFP that was it came out in 2011, and I really wonder whether this technology has changed since 2011. So I had a concern about that. When this was first mentioned at the previous city council meeting, I hinted, maybe I wasn't hinting strongly enough, that there should be a conversation with the Innovation District because we are moving forward in Erie with smart city technology to see how this integrates with that. And as far as I know, that conversation hasn't happened. I was also told that timing is of the essence, that this grant has to be applied for because the deadline to apply to ECRA for a multi-municipal grant is May 30th. And when I checked the ECRA website today, the grant deadline is actually July 18th, although somebody at the caucus did tell me that that deadline has been extended. But I would hope that people would be up to date on when the actual grant deadline is. I think knowing that there was a little bit more time we would have been able to get some more information about this. I want to reiterate that the city doesn't have $100,000 to contribute to this as a matching grant. We've been told that by submitting this grant, somehow other grant sources or possibly in-kind information will become available. I guess that would be good. But I also wonder fundamentally about whether the city grants administrator is involved in this and whether this application for a multi-municipal grant will compete with other multi-municipal grants that the city might be applying for. I think that we're applying for a grant from ECRA to work on the census. So are we going to be competing with our own grants? Those are all some of the questions I have. Questions that could have been answered because there's enough time frame here to get this without voting on this tonight. So I am I believe the sole anti-vote on this, but I am sticking to my stand that we need information, we need to follow process, we need transparency. So thank you.
All right, roll call.
Well, I think I'll just say one quick word. The only reason, what people have to realize, we've had this, what has been known as RELCO. It's been a non-operative system in this town for many, many years. And it's time we do something, look for some money, look for some grant monies to help update it and get the city where it needs to be, considering we have the hospitals in our town, the county, Mill Creek, they are all updated. The city of Erie, where the hospitals are, we are not. And I know there could be particulars involved, but you gotta remember, it's gonna make the streets safer, the citizens who are traveling the streets safer, the emergency personnel who are trying to get through these intersections, them safer as well. So at the end of the day, you have, whether people are having a heart attack or injured in an emergency, if you can save 30 seconds, a minute by having these lights coordinated, it's something that's definitely needed to be done for a long time. So this is just a grant we're applying for. It's not like we're putting the money out there ourselves. But I just wanted to make that point. I believe it's time we did update our Relco system. Thank you.
Mr. President, I do have to add one more thing then, based on your comments. Before somebody thinks that I am somebody who wants to, like, impede travel to the hospital, I want to make sure that everybody knows that I would be the last person who would do that, having had a husband and a son who died suddenly, and having had my own heart attack last year, although I didn't need to be transported by ambulance. So that is not my concern. My concern is this the best technology to do that? Obviously, I wouldn't be standing in the way of getting emergency vehicles to the hospital as quickly as possible. So I just want to make that clear. I'm not trying to have people dying because they are not getting to the emergency room quickly enough.
Mr. President, just a quick, in relation, not directly connected, and this might go maybe more toward the administration, and I know the administration tries to do a lot of public service work and get information out, but since we haven't had the Relco system really active, or what we call the Relco system, but even more so, people just don't know how to yield to emergency vehicles in general. Like, people will stop in the middle of the street and they don't know that they should yield a certain way. I think since we're having this significant conversation, and if this development and enhancement of whatever system we use for emergency vehicles navigating our streets, if there's some kind of an outreach or some kind of an informational or something, and I know we can't get everyone, and I know, but people literally don't know how to respond. They don't know. Some people freeze. Some people don't know they should yield a certain way. And so I think if we could do some public information and outreach around that from the city, this would be a good time to do that, because we are looking to make some enhancements on our emergency traffic system. So just a little caveat.
Thank you very much. Rose, the vote, please.
All right, roll call. Ms. Allen?
No.
Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Jones, Mr. Potowski, Ms. Schaaf, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Winarski. This will adopt 6-0. That will take us to committee reports, Mr. President.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very quickly, just would like to thank again my peers on council for supporting the resolution to have the solicitor's office look at the feasibility of assessing a fee for the easements for for-profit businesses expanding in the city right-of-way. I think it's just one of those pieces of the puzzle that I think all of us are looking for. All of the council members, administration are looking for ways to get the best bang for our buck, our services that we provide, the amenities that the city has and provides to its citizens, whether it be business and corporate citizens or the individual citizenry. We want to provide the best service, but we also have historically given many, many things away for free. And I think this is a time when we can't afford that. When I first came on council in 2005, I was elected and took office in January 2nd of 2006. We were giving away a lot of different services for free, and we continue to give a lot of them away for free. But the unique thing is that we were one step away from Act 47, which is municipal bankruptcy, and had to make some very difficult and challenging changes and adjustments. We did some of those things. Many of those things weren't done, and kind of were able to head that off, and the financial stability, depending on people's perspective and opinion on how we did it, but we are in Act 47 as a city. And I think right now, again, we have a new administration that's looking at things with a fresh set of eyes, and several new council members with fresh set of eyes and opinions. And I think this is a time while the iron is hot to continue to strike that and check off some of these revenue generators and fee-for-service things that the city provides and has historically provided for free. We just can't give the house away anymore because we won't have a house left for my grandchildren. I don't mean to sound all dramatic, but it literally turns into that, because if we go into an Act 47, then none of our positions as elected officials mean very much. The state will dictate and mandate, and contracts go out the window, and it'll just be a bottom line issue. So again, appreciate that support. And someone mentioned it earlier, go out and vote. Whoever you vote for, just vote. You know, it's important. You know, I don't want to sound cliche-ish, but your vote is your voice. And I would say if you don't vote, I really don't want to hear your audible voice because you're not doing your part to put yourself in the spaces and put people in places that can meet to the best of their ability your interests and the best interests for our city. So again, on next Tuesday, whoever you vote for, just go out and vote. The polls open at 7 a.m. I believe close at 8 p.m. and it's our right and our privilege. And many people of all races, both genders, and every persuasion of humanity have given blood, sweat, and tears for that privilege. Soldiers have fought and died for the privilege for us to do something we often take for granted. So jump on my soapbox for a minute and say that and get out and vote. Do your due diligence as a citizen of this great country and this phenomenal city. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, we attended the ECOG general session in Wesleyville the other day where we talked about many subjects ranging from RELCO to intercooperation between municipalities, and we had a session with the new director of the EMTA who gave an update on many of the new changes. I also, as is my committees, met with the investment committee of the aggregate board, and we had an aggregate board meeting where the results of the first quarter of this year were very favorable to the fund, and we made up any losses which the fourth quarter of 2018 had attained, so the fund is advancing in a very positive manner. And also, as a member of the Water Reserve, we did not meet this week, but this quarter was an interesting one where I want to explain to the members of council that when council many years ago had the wisdom to take this back from what was being run by the administration loosely, when it was really a council committee, we started with $7.5 million, which seems like a lot, but there was a lot more in there before that. Since that time, due to a lot of good work by people such as Mel, who preceded me on that committee, we have paid out to the city, as we agreed to, for capital improvements. We have paid out over $2.3 million, and the fund has gained $6.7 million, and right now it stands at about $12 million and progressing. I would caution this council to never abrogate what we decided to do is to let this fund grow and to continue to pay out the agreed upon amount to the city until such time as it does, far better. But the progress is good, and it's something that we can always fall back on if we have a major problem. Now, one thing real quick, I thought we passed the quality of life ticketing, but I guess I'm mistaken. Because frequently I've complained to the administration, to the code enforcement people, and this gentleman out here said it was dysfunctional. He's absolutely right. I have never seen a department that is less reactive to anybody. Now, usually I'm dealing with problems from other people. This time I had one that my neighbors complained about, and it was in front of my house. So if anybody thinks I wasn't watching, this is one I could watch all day for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. 2.5 weeks we had mattresses laying out front. Now, we have an ordinance saying 24 hours. But 2.5 weeks is not 24 hours. I checked, and after, thanks to Marcel, I found out that they had called in to get their merchandise picked up. But that was 2 weeks in advance. So I think we need to tell people what the rules are. But to make a long story short, I complained for a couple times. Now, if a councilman can't get stuff picked up in front of, across from his house, I don't know what these people do. We have a code department that either doesn't understand what the quality of life ticketing is all about. They promised me they were gonna cite this person. I didn't want them fined, just told to put it back where it belongs, in the backyard or in the garage. The breakdown happened somewhere between, Mr. Zisk followed through with what I asked him, but somehow when it got over to code enforcement, it broke down. I was told the person was told, and I was told they weren't told. I don't care anymore. I really don't care. What I care about is that you start taking this code enforcement and ordinances seriously. When I have to watch in front of my house, and I know nobody came by there. Now, I can be forgiven for not watching somebody on the other side of town, because I don't have time to travel out there all the time on my own dime. So I'm not happy with this. And if this keeps up, I think we're gonna have to do something about code enforcement. Maybe we need to replace a few people or find out what the heck is going on up there. This is unacceptable. And it's all around the city. It's not my neighborhood. Just drive around it. I don't know if they ever get out of I would take every desk out of that office and tell them to start driving around town like I do and taking a look around. Apparently they can't see what I see. They never drive down Parade Street, that's for dang sure. I'm almost swore, I promised I wouldn't. So I'm done with that, so you can rest assured the rest of my time here on council, I will berate that department until they start doing their job. And finally, on a good note, coming up very shortly on the 27th is Memorial Day. As a veteran, I had the pleasure of putting out almost 1,000 flags this past week. It kind of makes you understand what the holiday's about. It's not about hot dogs, not about beer, not about partying or anything like that. Try to remember what the holiday is really about, and that's the men and women that gave up an awful lot, and they don't have the chance to eat the hot dogs or drink the beer. So this Memorial Day, keeping that in mind. And that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Mr. President, I have no report.
God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I attended a public art talk. Barbara Goldstein came from California to give an inspiring talk. It's a series that is put on by Erie Arts and Culture Executive Director Patrick Fisher, and this one was on place keeping, and it reminded me of my recent trip to Kingsport, Tennessee, and in their downtown historic area, they had a call out to different artists to do park benches, and all different park benches throughout their downtown area were all different and very unique, and definitely public art. There was also a mention during the talk if developers of private developers could put in a percentage towards public art in Erie, and I really liked that idea. I also attended a Jefferson Society meeting on poverty, and again, they reiterated about the problems that we have with our city and how poverty affects us all. Mr. Witherspoon and I attended the COG meeting last Thursday at the Shrine Club, and I really liked it. The different things that attract us to Erie, and something that I sort of neglected, Christopher Tracy had a wonderful presentation on the natural species and the natural landscapes that we have, and how so many people come for the different nature like that is found in our ponds, our streams, and I thought that was just really fascinating. So it causes to mind my anti-littering. Yesterday I was walking down State Street, and a woman got out of her car, older than me, and threw a bottle on the grass, and I picked it up while she was there, and I said, oh, I'll help you out with this, and took it to the trash can just a few feet away. We have such a great team of people that are out there in the city at 6:30 in the morning picking up the litter on the streets, and yet if you're taking a walk at 5 o'clock, it's just like, oh my goodness, it's out there. And I'm calling on the community members at large to do a better job of cleaning up after yourself. there are trash cans readily available throughout the downtown area, or just put it back in your car, take your garbage home, and throw it out at home. So please, you can be a part of making our city a cleaner, happier place. Thank you for voting on the water fountain resolution today, and I hope to have us look at the possibility of having a water fountain at the Witherspoon Park and Perry Square. And congratulations to Mr. Witherspoon. He has something to say next. And you have definitely committed your life to the children of Erie with your basketball skills. And that's a perfect example how you were given a talent, and your talent was with athletics and kids, and you have given back to the community. So I thank everyone out there who does give back to the community, who has talents to give, and you volunteer. I just can't say enough good things about that. So, thank you.
Miss Allen. Yeah, we're skipping now.
You want me to go?
Please.
Okay. Mel, are you, we're good?
You're good.
Okay. I wanted to thank Kathy for talking about littering, and that's a great segue into the fact that at the caucus session, we had a really good report from Sarah Galloway, and I'm blanking on Sarah's married name now, who is our sustainability coordinator for the City of Erie. City of Erie becoming a more sustainable city and resilient to climate change. So there's a whole list of things that the city has done and intends to do. And I think that that's, after the Erie Times News report about how climate change is affecting our region, I think it's really important for all of us to be on the ball with this. If you've walked at the beach lately, or even if you walk down on the East Slip, I mean, because the water levels are so high, the bay's been very windy. There's water right now coming up to the, on the path where you walk. I asked Ed Kissel, I said, is this gonna affect like even public access? You know, if the water is coming up where you're supposed to have public access, it's something that we need to be aware of. I thought it was interesting out on the multi-purpose trail at the beach, because the water is so high, it's kind of interesting. You're getting to see new critters, like the ducks are right there and the birds are right there, but I don't really think that's the way we want to do it. So thank you, Kathy, and going forward on the drinking fountain initiative. We hope that will be a way ultimately to reduce some of the litter. If you don't have to have plastic bottles for water and you can use the reusable containers, we might be able to cut down on some of the litter. I was talking about municipal cooperation before, and I did go to the Mill Creek Township Supervisors meeting yesterday. So they did listen to me. I went there to talk about EMTA funding because my concern is that Mill Creek is kind of going in the opposite direction, cutting their funding for EMTA from, I think it's $22,000 to $2,800. And what Mill Creek says is, well, we want the other municipalities to pay more. But there seemed to be a misconception there that people in Mill Creek don't use the bus. And it was really encouraging to see. There were a lot of people there from Voices for Independence. They said, hey, our business is in Mill Creek. This is where people come to work, and then they come here and they go elsewhere, and they're very concerned about the Lyft service. So I did ask the supervisors if they would ride the bus in Mill Creek with me, and I did get one supervisor who said that he would, but I haven't been able to do it. I haven't been able to arrange a date yet because I've been sick for like 2 days. I wanted to just I think the person who mentioned hate symbols isn't here. Oh, you're here? Thank you for bringing that to our attention. I'm not sure what happens where you impinge on somebody's, free speech rights, but I will tell you, and then we had code enforcement took a licking tonight. I will tell you, though, that a few years ago, I noticed that there was a swastika on a sidewalk a few blocks from where I live, and I called code enforcement, and at first they weren't sure that they could do anything, then they sent somebody out. It was big, and they power washed it and got rid of it. So it might be a question of whether it's on public property or not, but I think that that would be something that we should start to track. And I could see all of us when we heard Aryan Nation, that was like, I mean, that's a hate group. I had seen a racial slur on the Boston store sometime within the last year, and I was going to call the management company. By the time I came back, it had been covered up. But we should all be alert to this and figure out what we can do, or how to respond. I just want to say one thing. I'm on a group with Katie Eichenlob, and I have actually asked the group that we meet with, how do you engage with somebody like that? Because I'm concerned, because there's a boat down in the East Slip that has a combination Confederate flag and American flag. And the advice that I got was to maybe ask the people, why are you doing that, rather than like starting a, but I haven't done it. I was down there again the other day and there was nobody there, but I just took a picture of it. So did you want to add something about the hate symbols? Thank you for.
They're not like little symbols. It's a huge Aryan Brotherhood symbol. And even their biker symbol is also a lesser known symbol of not Nazis, but I get that it's probably their private property, but I'm guessing people would not be able to put gang symbols on if they wanted to, and that's worse.
Thank you for alerting us to that. I really appreciate that. And despite the way the world is right now, I do believe that in Erie, there are a number of groups that are standing up and talking about why we need to be inclusive and why we need to stand up to hate. And my final comment actually is on gender. I really appreciate the mom who talked about the pronouns, and mine is just like, that feels like a much more difficult thing for a child and a family to grapple with. But I've been on this mission to try and make sure we use inclusive language when we're talking about council business. And there was somebody who came up to the podium today and was talking about and said that if we organize city council by ward, it would allow the councilman to specialize in his area. And I do want to point out that there are 3 council women on here. I also want to point out, I think that that's probably something worth discussing. That's not something that the council can do. It's my understanding that we would have to go for home rule charter to be able to do that. So it's not something council could vote on and say, yeah, let's do this or reorganize by ward, and there's a whole process there. Just so you know, the conversation, we've heard it, but it's not a simple matter of saying, yeah, next time we're going to have elections by ward. So anyhow, thanks for all the good ideas from the audience tonight.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody? Oh. Mr. Witherspoon. Any report tonight?
Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. I want to thank, like Liz said, I want to thank those who enlighten us on certain issues, because a lot of us don't get all around town all the time. Some of us have full-time jobs, and we have to do that first. But we do appreciate your input, and we will do whatever we can within the law. So that's why we have the attorneys available to see what we can do about that. Also, I would like to thank Carl Anderson from County Council. Yesterday, they kind of surprised me and presented me with a citation. I know you can't see it. I can't see it, and I'm just, oh no, it's too much to read. Oh, it's too much to read. Y'all don't want to hear that. But it just told me how great I was.
It's really not, I can read it.
It's too much.
It's not 5 minutes worth.
It's too much. they love me. Come on.
Do I have to?
No, don't rap the gavel yet.
Hit that gavel.
When I served with Mr. Magnoni and Mr. Thompson years ago, I brought up the possibility of having wards or districts, and it went nowhere. It went nowhere at that time because 3 of the councilmen lived in the 5th ward, and that means they would have to run against each other. But I love the idea, I love the concept, because when you're campaigning, now your area of campaign is smaller, and your neighbors, whether they're 2 or 3, 4 or 5 blocks away, they can check on you, they can call you, they can knock on your door, and you begin to know them. In many areas today, people still don't speak in their next door. But I think that's a very good idea. If you break it down in 5 wards, you can always have 2 wards at large, or 2 seats at large. But again, as Liz indicated, it's nothing we can do. It has to start with our state reps, and it'll take about a year if it goes that way, if they want to do it. But I think that's the way it should be. Mr. President, that is my report, sir.
Thank you. Thank you kindly. I have no report. Mr. Mayor?
I'll try to be brief also. I just wanted to make sure you're all aware that the State Firefighters Conference is going on at the Bayfront Convention Center. They came into town late yesterday. They kicked off the conference today. I was there to welcome them. Also, there was the 3rd annual Seeds of Hope luncheon today at the Bayfront Convention Center also. That's McGee Women's Hospital and Hammett Health Foundation, and it's basically programs to help women with some of the kind of unique health issues that they have to deal with. It was a very good meeting. I'll be in Kansas City next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday attending the Mayor's Entrepreneurial Conference. That's everything, all my expenses are being paid by the Kauffman Foundation to go there. The National League of Cities is very involved with this, and basically it's about entrepreneurship and how to generate more entrepreneurship in your city and support entrepreneurs. They'll be asking for a commitment to action, and the National League of Cities will be monitoring all the cities that commit to that. I believe there's going to be around 70 or 80 cities represented at that conference. We also met with Sean Federico from Radius Co-work and Brian Slaywin from the Ben Franklin Foundation and a couple others, just to get their input on what I should be looking for, what I should be thinking about at this conference. Well, I do also want to remind everyone to vote on Tuesday, the election day. We will have the election day trolley on Tuesday that Michael Outlaw will be accompanying residents from around the city. And I can tell you that the trolley will be, and by the way, EMTA provides that free of charge. So that morning we'll be at Grandview Manor at 8:20 in the morning, Austro Apartments at 8:25, Mercy Center Apartments at 9:20, Mid-City Towers at 10:10, and Tulio Towers at 10:40 to transport residents to their election places. Our normal press conference will be tomorrow at 10. I know some of you come, and you're all welcome to always attend that. I was really excited about Value Momentum's announcement earlier this week. That's an Indian company, and we're going to have their 2nd U.S. location will be here in Erie. They've already hired about 19 employees from graduates from our local universities, and over the next couple of years they'll probably grow to 100 employees here in Erie. And they haven't announced the location yet, but they're also in the process of buying a location. Gannon is going to give them some working room to start with, but eventually they'll have their own location here in downtown Erie. Back on May 10th, I attended St. Vincent's Women's and Infant Center ribbon cutting, which is another great service for women that's here in Erie. Our hospitals are incredible what they're doing here for the city. Also had a lunch with the mayor back on May 2nd, where 12 new Americans were there. They're all in the
school district class learning, they're all adults, but they're learning to speak English, and we had a real good conversation in terms of their needs and what's going on with them. And finally, I just wanted to let you know that the final bridging supper in the People Supper series that we've been working on all year here will be May 23rd, next Thursday night. And if any of you are interested in coming and seeing any of that, you certainly can do that. We will then be having, we're hoping from this supper we get some real specific actions as to what we can do to eliminate racism and prejudice here in Erie and make every individual accepted for who they are. There will be then a community supper on June 25th as well, where we'll be inviting many more people, and we'll be announcing some of the things that we plan to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. Attorney Betts.
I just have my periodic LERTA report. May 30th from 5:30 to 7:30 will be the first of the public hearings. It'll be here. It'll be a city council event where we'll hold the hearing. Members, I understand members of the school board and the county council will attend, but it'll be our hearing as city council. The county and the school have been gracious to offer access to their facilities. I know we've indicated that we would hold 2 public hearings, or that's been at least a discussion. Do we want the second of our hearings at a county facility such as the library, or at a school facility such as the school, or do we prefer to have it here?
I think we should, well, I would suggest a different location. Agree to be the library, that might be, I know it's not that far from here at City Hall, but.
Does anyone have a problem? I mean, and some of it deals with availability of when we can get the facility and when I can get counsel. I mean, do you just want me to pick it? Because we need to run legal ads. I mean, if it were the library, would everybody be comfortable with that?
I would say so.
Yes, I'm okay here.
So it would, tentatively, what we're looking at, and I need to firm up the second date, I need to get location and availability of council, but it would appear that May 30th from 5:30 to 7:30, and then potentially June 12th, but I have not cleared that with everyone on council, and I don't know that we have a facility, but June 12th from 9, starting at 9 o'clock may be one that would work. But I'll just throw that date out. I'll confirm that with, I guess if anyone can get back to me and let me know if that works.
We'll say you're in charge on this. All right.
Yeah, well, we'll reach out. Everyone on council's been great getting back to me. So I don't know when the second one will be. We'll firm that up, but May 30th, 5:30 to 7:30, right here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that's it, Rose. Thank you all for coming out tonight.
City council adjourns at 9:09. Mr. Winarski, Ms. Allen, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Jones, Mr. Potowski, Ms. Shaw, Mr. Witherspoon.